thin skin, held up longer than I was falling.
Welcome to Center Stage, the documentary podcast. Each week, our group of intrepid researchers and music archivists dig through the record crates of the world, looking for that one artist to take center stage. Using a patent-pending algorithm and spirited debate, we pick one artist. Once that is settled, we invite that artist into Thunderlove Studio to chat with your hosts Keith R. Higgins and Jeff Calhoun. When we're lucky, they say yes. Our mission with Center Stage is simple: to make sure the recorded work of artists remains, or in some cases lands on, the cultural radar. We invite you to sit back and relax. Thank you for joining us.
This week on Center Stage, we welcome Craig Douglas Miller of the band BLUEBURST into Thunderlove Studio. In a musical landscape often dominated by overproduced slickness, BLUEBURST, with the help of Marty Willson-Piper of the Church, fearlessly embraces its retro influences, proudly wearing its inspirations on its sleeve. The debut album, Significance, was released in October of 2023. But in the last few months, the band has picked up more than a few new fans, with me and Jeff among them. Craig dropped in to talk about his career, the album, and his collaboration with Marty, and a few other things, naturally. Here is our conversation with Craig Douglas Miller of BLUEBURST.
In order to go off the rails, you have to have been on the rails to begin with.
Good point. Yeah, I can see that.
Well, Craig Douglas Miller, welcome to Center Stage.
Thank you for having me. Nice to be here.
Before we begin, I was reading Harper's Magazine because I'm that kind of a pretentious dick.
You are.
And I'm gonna up the ante by quoting E.L. Doctorow from a 1991 issue of Harper's. And the quote is, and I quote, "A good song has the characteristics of seeming always to have existed." Which is something which is something I thought as I listened to the album. Before you hopped on the call, Jeff asked me how I came across it, and it's one of those things. I don't sleep very well, so I was up in the middle of the night and I was scrolling, doing the one thing they tell you not to do, and that's scroll through your phone.
I'm right there with you.
And I caught one of your ads on Instagram, and I heard like maybe 15 seconds of a jangle guitar, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to order that. I bet that's good. And sure enough, I got the record, and sure enough, and it's very good. Congratulations.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. It's funny. I remember in high school, I heard about 20 seconds of a song by The Laws. And I'm like, I can tell I'm going to like that record just from that 20 seconds. And it's one of my favorites of all time. So there she goes. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how the album came to be.
Well, it's a long story.
We got time.
Starts back in the 90s. I was in a band that was pretty serious called The Reach, and we had major label interests and all that stuff, and just never quite panned out. And after that, I kind of just went into a period where I just wasn't finishing any songs. I was doing little snippets of this and that here and saving them, but I lost my confidence a bit. I was trying to do everything myself. When I did do it, I had a demanding career on top of all that. And I just kind of got I don't know what you call it, tick in my head where I just couldn't finish anything. And I met Marty Willson-Piper in about 2010 when I was trying to get the church to come and play at the ad agency I was working at, and kept up with him over the years a little bit with an email here and there. And then I saw that he was doing songwriting and guitar guidance sessions over Skype. And I thought, well, that sounds great. I'll do that. And I thought I'd just get a few tips on playing guitar. And, I kept doing it for a few years, and it really turned into more just discussions of the creative process and helping me work through that in my own head. And I suddenly realized, I had a mentor all of a sudden. I had someone to bounce ideas off of and go, well, that one's not that good, but this one's great, and you should do this. And it just made all the difference. It just got me unstuck. Being at home for COVID and working freelance and not getting much work during COVID helped because I had a lot of free time to work on it. But yeah, it's something I always wanted to do. I like to tell people that before this album, I had sort of just become a guy who used to be in a band. And now I feel like I can claim the title of musician again. So that was a long way of answering a short question, but
No, it's a great answer.
Craig, where are you based out of?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. And
Okay.
I grew up here, but I've lived all over the place with my career. I've been to New York, Boston, London, Colorado, Miami. But I moved back here about 7 years ago, and we'll probably stay. So I need to get a little closer to my family and all that. So
I want to put the hook in people's mouth because it's to me, it's the least comfortable part of the interview, Craig, where we compare your music to other artists. Oh, what an uncomfortable, awful thing.
Oh, you should see the comment threads on all those ads that you guys saw. So I'm used to it.
Oh my goodness.
And I know the one. I know the one that's coming. So I'm ready for it.
Well, maybe you do. My
Jeff will
first
surprise
impression-
you. Jeff will
Yeah.
surprise you.
So I'm gonna recommend, if you like. The first thing I heard was Altered Beast era Matthew Sweet. That late 90s Matthew Sweet, and not quite like, because Matthew Sweet wasn't really power pop. It was more of an alternative rock band than he was power pop. But man, some of those backing harmonies were pretty good.
Yeah.
There's a real specific moment when Bob Mould was wrapping up Sugar. The late 90s were like the grunge thing was not happening anymore. We were not going to throw money at Nirvana sounding bands. Sugar was kind of wrapping up. Bob still had his deal with Ryko Disc, and so he put out a couple of solo albums like Last Dog and Pony Show, Workbook. I'm taken to some of those Bob Mould solo records, I think, a little bit. And then I'm sure the inescapable one that you probably have heard 100,000 times is you got to know that there's a little Michael Stipe in there, little REM.
Been hearing that one since about 1987, so I'm used to it. So.
Yeah. So, but the other one I think is you might have put out my favorite Connell's record that they never recorded. I think
I'll take that as a great compliment. I love the Connells. There's something great about that band.
What's not to love? So if you put all those things in a blender, if you put Matthew Sweet and Bob Mould and the Connells and REM, a specific era of REM maybe. But if you put all that in a blender, I think that's what you have in your album. And I have to thank Keith because this is like a game that we play, is a long stand, almost like a bet, right? Like, I bet I can come up with something you've never heard of that you're going to love start to finish. And this is one of those that he hit me with. And I was like, all right, you win this week. I'm blown away. It's a really fantastic record.
Thank you.
And you should feel great about it, man. But those references are all real specific. I would love to know, and I ask where you're from because I think maybe the Connells and REM I associate geographically with the South. So I maybe I hear a little bit of the South in this album. Would you say that's true?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I cut my teeth learning to play guitar, when I was in the mid to late 80s, living in Atlanta, when alternative, indie music was just sort of blossoming. And, it was the cool thing at my high school to have a Connell's t-shirt. They weren't that easy. They weren't that easy to get back then.
Yeah.
And, I was, up until I was about 14, I was listening to a steady diet of Twisted Sister and Rat and Winger and Van Halen and all that. And then my sister took me to see REM do the final show of the Life Fritz pageant tour at the Fox Theater in Atlanta. And they did 5 encores, and it just, nothing was the same for me about what I thought was cool after that, and I love that period of REM because there's so much energy in it. And, they got into a lot of sort of slower mid-tempo stuff later, which I also love, but I loved that when they were really a rock band. And Guadalcanal Diary is another one from that period, who's from Marietta, which is where I grew up. And I got to meet Murray, the singer guitar player, not too long ago, and have some tacos. That's a nice thing about doing an album that people like, is musicians like Murray will take my call and go have tacos with me. So,
hey, that's wonderful.
But I think, a couple things. Vocally, I think Matthew Sweet and I and sort of document era Michael Stipe all enunciate our words very clearly, and have a sort of tonal range that's kind of right in the same area. I mean, I know what the highest note is that I can sing, and I know the highest note I've ever heard Michael Stipe sing. It's the same note. It's like, on Everybody Hurts. I can barely make it to that. So, I do worry that I've ripped him off, but it's just, my voice just sounds like that. It's like when I try not to sound like that, it just sounds like shit. So, there you go. And the Bob Mould thing is really interesting to me because I never really listened to Bob Mould. I had a copy of Copper Blue, growing up, but I didn't know it well. And everyone's been Bob Mould, Bob Mould, Bob Mould. And of course, since then, I went back and listened to it. A friend said, you'd have to listen to Workbook.
Yeah.
And, it's terrific. I love it. So I get it. And I'm completely flattered that people are hearing that. I think, one thing I wanted to do with this record is give it some pace, and some, so I think his stuff has that too. And that kind of driving thing that gets your heart pumping. So.
Absolutely agree.
There's I want to pick out one song right now before we move any further, and that's Executioner's Song, which I initially heard as like a rebellious song,
Well, it is in a way, yeah.
And unfortunately, until I saw the video on the Bandcamp, it is a rebellious song just about Gary Gilmore, who is a serial killer who was, if I'm not mistaken, the last person to be executed by firing squad.
Well, he's the only person to ever ask to be executed and subsequently be executed.
My own right hand.
it's funny. I saw Norman Mailer in this documentary about Muhammad Ali, and I thought he looks interesting. And so I looked him up, and it said my Executioner's Song was the book he wrote about Gary Gilmore. It's this masterpiece. And so I read it and loved it. And I was had the music for that song mostly written. And I thought it was kind of a happy sounding piece of music. And I tried to write happy lyrics to it. And it just came out really saccharine, like too much. And I thought, well, what if at first I was like, maybe I'll write it about Jeffrey Dahmer, because I'm watching this miniseries about Jeffrey Dahmer. And I'm like, no, I don't want to write something about Jeffrey Dahmer. Well, maybe I'll write about Gary Gilmore. And it just, it worked really well to have that kind of tension, I think, between the darkness of what the song's about and the hopeful sort of tone of that piece of music. So,
and the rebelliousness was I really
liked. I mean, that was his thing, is he didn't know what he was rebelling against, but he was constantly rebelling against it. And he just, I think, decided that he hadn't had a very good life and he wanted to have a good death. I mean, he was a really intelligent, articulate guy who just had a screw loose and would kind of go blank and do this stuff. And there are probably, I don't know, maybe a lot of serial killers are intelligent and artistic. It's hard to know, but he's certainly an interesting case. So
great song.
That one was funny. I could not get it right. I kept changing the tempo on it, and finally I just got the tempo, and I was like, there it is. That's it. Now it works. So it turned out, I struggled with it, but it turned out to be one of my favorite ones on the album. Hence putting it in, prime position there at number 2. I always think the second song on albums is almost always really good. So
fair statement.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time analyzing track lists and sequencing.
Yeah, we do talk about sequencing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, don't let Marvin know.
Yes.
7.
Jane, what can you tell me about this man you saw last night?
He is Caucasian.
Caucasian?
Yeah, a white guy with a mustache, about 6'3".
An awfully big mustache.
It's interesting to me, if you Google Blueburst, you're going to find a lot of references to marijuana, as it is a very popular strain of weed right now.
I saw that, yeah.
But I shouldn't assume, Craig. Where does the name source from?
You'll appreciate this, Jeff, I think.
Oh my, that's
they only made this color 1 year, and it was called Blueburst, and I think it's just gorgeous. And
for those, I've always loved for those that are listening, he's holding up a blue guitar.
Yes, the Rickenbacker 360 6-string. So, I don't know. I love the color blue. I've always loved the color blue, and was trying to think of something to do with it, and just had that guitar. I have another one that's also a blue burst finish, but it looks more turquoise. But that's where it came from.
Now, to be fair, Keith, we've had guests on the show who might have said it's about that strain of marijuana.
Yes.
It's funny. I've certainly done my share of things. I'll just say that. But marijuana's just always made me sleepy and paranoid. Like, I'm like, everyone knows I'm high. Everyone's looking at me. And so I never really enjoyed it that much. Certain times when I'm in a comfortable environment, I have. But anyway.
It's not often you hear Kaiser Soze name checked.
Get out of my head, Higgins.
Sorry.
Man,
what's going on there?
Every once in a while we write down notes about stuff we want to ask about. And I wanted to ask about the lyric "Proof like Kaiser Soze's footsteps."
Yeah.
Damn it, Keith.
Well, so much of this album is about, I turned 50 when I started making it, and it's kind of the midlife crisis thing. And turning 50, I was just like, God, well, that was fast. Where the hell did that go? Holy shit. So, I wrote, a half century gone, proof like Kaiser Soze's footsteps. It's gone. It's never coming back, that song especially is about, me kind of turning 50 and going, all right, well, what am I going to do with this now? And deciding, well, I'm going to try and get every bit of life I can out of it. And it's funny, I wrote the music for that first, and I went to my wife and I said, this song's kind of uplifting, and you've been through some uplifting stuff lately. She's been in recovery, and she's been sober now for 5 years.
Okay, that's right.
And it's been a real reawakening for her. And I said, would you want to write some lyrics to that? And she came back to me a couple weeks later. She said, all I can think of is this thing I heard in group of no one gets out alive. Don't take any of this too seriously because no one gets out alive. And I was like, that's great. And it just happens to perfectly fit the meter of the chorus. So, and then, I didn't wind up writing it about recovery. I kind of wrote it about my own issues because I'm a narcissist, I guess. But,
you're just a singer-songwriter. That comes with the territory.
There's another oblique reference in there. Well, not that Kaiser Soze is that oblique. People our age know that one. But I said, Mae said to do it right and one's all you need. And I met Mae West, who said, you only live once, but if you do it right, once is enough. So
that was one of my questions. I thought of my Mae West. Yep.
Yep.
So
that chorus I just love.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's stay on that song a minute because
sure.
I don't place my hopes on any phony afterlife, but I'm not done yet. The first time I heard the tune, I thought this is a person struggling with the concept of mortality or wrestling with the concept of mortality. And on subsequent listens, I don't know that you're struggling or wrestling. I think it's just you have reconciled more than anything that, hey, half of it's gone.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I studied clinical psychology in school, and I was always most interested in this sort of existentialist school of therapy, which is really all about, Sartre and, sort of coming to grips with your own death, and that death is the only thing that gives anything any meaning. And if you think about it, if you knew you were going to live an infinite amount of time, every single possible thing that could happen would eventually happen to you because it's infinite. So what would be the point? It's like the fact that there's a beginning and an end is the only thing that gives us a point. So, it's definitely something I've thought a lot about over the years. And, my father is sick with cancer right now, probably terminal. And it sucks. So I'm not reconciled with it as much as maybe I thought, because it sucks watching him kind of have to face it head on. So, but I do think it's some people run from, and I think if you embrace it and give it a hug, you realize that it's a good thing. Plus, the older you get, the more you don't like younger people's music. So it's like, I don't want to, how long do you get?
And just a little bit above what the line that Jeff quoted is, I love I don't know if I want to say it's a contradiction, but this of death I know, nothing means a thing without it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a great interplay. I love the way that, because it's true.
Thank you. Yeah. That's exactly what I was saying. It just, what would be the point if it never ended? So,
was probably my favorite song on the album until I heard Amplify Me.
I gotta finally
that was the first one we did. And, well, start out musically, I think it could have easily just kind of been a basic Pearl Jam kind of thing. And then Marty came in and put his magic on it and added, so many cool little, I think of it as events more than parts, little swells and tremolo chords. And he used like 12 different guitars on that, and really gave it an amazing texture. Lyrically, it was written, during those summers when just everybody was out in the streets yelling and screaming about something, much of it justified, a lot of it not, but depending on what side you're on. And I didn't want to take a side in the song. I was just wanted to write it from the standpoint of a person, no matter which side they're on, who is so pent up that they're not being heard. And almost to the point of violence. I think the last verse is really saying, this person's going to do something violent if he has to make himself heard. So, Peter Gabriel wrote a song called Intruder that I always loved. That's kind of about a criminal, a guy robbing a house. And I sort of ripped him off when I was in the Reach and wrote a song called Closer about a stalker that's sort of left with like, you're not sure what he's going to do at the end of the song. And I like that sort of cliffhanger kind of feel to it. So definitely was going for that.
And a sentiment that more and more of us can identify with.
There's more and more people on the planet every year fighting to be heard, and so less chance to be heard. And the internet, it's strangely, I think, makes people feel like they're being heard, but are they? I don't know. It's interesting to me to see, the comments people leave on my music, and almost all of it is positive, but every once in a while someone will be like, it sounds like REM and REM sucks, and I'm just like, what? Okay, fine. I don't care. That's your opinion. If you're entitled to, but what made you want to stop and take time out of your day to put that online and try to cut somebody down? I don't get it. I guess we've all done it before, right? Cut somebody down to make ourselves feel superior. But it's just it's such a thing that we're all aware of now, right? Trolls. It's like, you don't want to be an internet troll. Those are the lowest of the low. So it always blows me away when someone does that. So,
what that reminds me a little bit of is like when you talk about somebody who had to take time out of their day to say, reply, this sounds like REM sucks. It reminds me a little bit of directions on shampoo. Wet hair. The inference there is that at some point somebody did it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. But I was really happy with how that one came out. And it's strange that it's got kind of a position towards the end of the record, because I think it's one of the best songs on the record, but it just kind of worked out that way from song to song.
It could easily have batted lead off, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to go back to influences for one quick second.
Sure.
Did anything crop up that maybe you didn't expect, like you were hearing on playback? You're like, oh, wait a minute.
Well, I grew up listening to a lot of Rush, and I never really thought it had influenced my music that much. But with this album, I realized it did. I've got some weird time changes in there. And especially Supernova, it's like 7/8/8/8. I forget what it is. But definitely, I think they perked in there. And again, the Bob Mould thing was such a surprise to hear that, because I haven't really known him. I've discovered a lot of really cool music from people telling me what the album sounds like Idlewild and Fontaine's DC, and nice. And it's made me want to go back to Matthew Sweet, and listen to his stuff again, which I always liked. So that's been kind of a cool thing.
Let's talk a little bit about staying with influences. You do a cover of Peaceful, Easy Feeling. Now, is that ironic? I have two questions. Is that ironic? Do you love the Eagles, and how do you have any fear of the litigious Don Henley?
Well, first of all, once a band has recorded a song, anyone can buy a license for it and it can't be stopped from recording it. So there's no legal issue. I bought the license. Honestly, what happened with it is I was studying, like trying to figure out how to get into sync music, which is basically getting your music in film and TV.
Okay.
And I saw a listing that they wanted covers of that song. And I thought, well, that would kind of be fun. And then I got this whole thing in my head that I was going to do an EP called Songs I Listened to Growing Up in My Dad's Car. And it was going to have like Wings and this song, I can't remember who's saying it now, a song called Just When I Needed You Most. And just some of that, like kind of yacht rocky kind of stuff that I thought would be fun to do. And you probably saw the John Denver track that I did, which I was really think came out great. So that, as I started to do more songs for it, I was like, this music's not very good. I really don't want to do this. But I had the Peaceful, Easy Feeling thing. And I kind of regret releasing it, to be honest with you, because I did it in a period when I was trying to figure out how to promote the album. And I kept reading that Spotify wants you to put out a new song every 6 weeks. And I was like, I got to release something. And I, since then, have said, I'm not going to let the Spotify algorithm determine whether I release a piece of music or not ever again. But I mean, I don't think it's bad. I enjoyed doing it. So, and a few people have bought it and downloaded it and enjoy it. So, but no, there wasn't any grand irony to it.
Okay.
It's one of my dad's favorite songs. So
that's nice.
Yeah. But yeah, the John Denver one, on the other hand, as a little kid, I really liked John Denver, and my parents took me to see him in concert when I was 4, and I fell asleep after the first song because I was 4. I have this, one of my earliest memories is with a little Radio Shack tape recorder that my neighbors across the street had given me as like a going away gift when I was 3.5 or so. We were moving from New York to Atlanta, and I just remember sitting in the empty house listening to John Denver's greatest hits on this little tape machine, and it was gray. I mean, it's really warbly memory, but it's gray. And I just remember feeling extremely sad from that song Fly Away. And there's another one with a similar tone called Looking for Space. And I think his voice is just, when he's melancholy, I think it's incredible, his voice. So I think that one came out terrific. And it's funny, Juliana Hatfield had just done an album of Olivia Newton-John covers.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to her management and said, would she want to sing on this and do the Olivia Newton-John parts? And she never got back to me. But I got a local singer who I'd met, who was the daughter of a friend of mine, Riley Schatz, and she just killed it. I mean, I just love what she adds to that song. I'm glad that Juliana Hatfield turned me down. So
it's a beautiful song.
Yeah, thank you.
And fun fact about me, John Denver was my first concert.
Funny.
Yeah.
I remember the Starland vocal band opened.
Oh,
they had that song Sky Rockets in Flight.
Afternoon Delight, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I always wondered what my life or my music life would have been like if my parents had different taste in music and actually owned Beatles albums or a copy of Pet Sounds or something, but they didn't. They had Johnny Mathis and Barbara Streisand and Barry Manilow, and they did have a copy of the Graduate soundtrack, which was pretty cool. But
yeah, that's cool.
I don't think it's appropriate to talk about this album without talking about Marty a bit, and if Marty's name
Absolutely.
is not one that immediately resonates for you, he was in the church, and how you've already said you were just doing some like online classes with him. How do you go from partnering that way to he played 17 different guitars on your record? That's you just like reach out like, hey man, you want to collaborate?
Well, it was a gradual thing, over years. I mean, we didn't do anything like that for the first year that I was doing sessions with him, and the sessions would only be maybe once a month, and just generally talking about creativity. And this entire thing just went very gradually. And the guy who played bass on it, Ryan Kelly, told me that he said, I didn't realize the scope of this thing when you asked me to play on it. And I was like, neither did I. I didn't know I was trying to do a professional album, but it just kind of started as, well, maybe we should put out a song, and Marty, do you want to play on it? And sure, I'll play on it. And just kind of went from there. And he's done a number of albums with other of people he calls his sessioneers. And he actually has a sessioneers playlist on Spotify.
Oh.
I think in most cases, it's more like he and someone else kind of work out the idea for a song, and then he gets studio musicians in to kind of hammer it out in the studio and make an album of that person's songs. Whereas, as he said, I came to him fully formed. Like I can play, and I've played, most of the rhythm guitar on the album and everything. So it's more of a, I don't know what the word is, true collaboration, I guess. But it's a dream come true. I mean, when I was 16, I went to see the Church in concert, and my friend and I stood over in front of Marty, and we're like, "That guy's the coolest guy in the world," And when I first met him, I was all nervous and starstruck and all this. And he's one of my favorite guitar players. He just plays with such heart, I think, in every note. And it's still surreal to me to think that I did an album with Marty Willson-Piper. So
yeah, I want to ask you about syncing. You're in advertising. Have you ever thought about just sneaking your song in there?
Sure.
Have you done it?
I just haven't had the opportunity yet. But
okay.
What I did do is signed up with a firm called Jingle Punks that shops our stuff now for commercials, and we almost got senseless into a Teleflora commercial recently. So,
oh wow!
But I got inspired to look into it by this story. There's an artist called A Boy and His Kite, which is really just one guy named Dave Wilton in Colorado. And I just heard a song one day in a coffee shop and Shazammed it, and it's A Boy and His Kite. I listened to the record and I loved it. And I happened to be going out to Colorado, and so I reached out to him and said, "Hey, you just put an album out after 20 years. I'm trying to do the same thing." And so we met and had coffee. And his story is that he had gone to Full Sail to be a music engineer and was working as an engineer and recording studio, and had some demo tapes that he's made, and people were like, "Oh, you should do something with that. You should make more stuff." And one of his demos wound up on the desk of the music supervisor for Twilight.
Oh, wow.
And the next thing you know, he's got a song on the Twilight soundtrack and is getting offers to tour and sign with big labels and all of it. But at the time he had, I think he said 3 kids, all under the age of 3. And it was just like, I can't do that. I mean, that's like, forget it. You might as well just get a divorce if you're going to do that, because you will be gone, 300 days a year. So he took the money he made and built out his home into a recording studio, and he records lots of artists there. It's a really cool setup. And, but anyway, that kind of got me like, hey, I could use some Twilight money in my life. I should try to get into sync. It's funny. I've tried to get other artists I like into stuff more than my own stuff, because I haven't had any stuff of my own stuff to try to get into ads really until recently. But I got a Reverend Horton Heat song into a McDonald's commercial. And
there you go.
They said, "Well, we want $50,000." And I was like, "Well, we have 5." And they said, "Well, we'll take it." So, they're like, "How come McDonald's doesn't have any money?" I'm like, "Because this is only like a little franchisee group of like 3 McDonald's. It's not the McDonald's Corporation."
Okay.
But anyway.
Now, was it the Reverend Horton Heat song "Eat Steak"? I hope
It was not. It was not.
Oh,
it was
missed opportunity.
Yeah, definitely.
Which song was it?
It was Psychobilly Freak Out.
Okay.
Yeah.
A good runner-up.
Yeah, and I actually made a sort of a demo reel of a bunch of clips from ads I made over the years, and I put it to Wiggle Stick. So, a Reverend Horton Heat song, Wiggle Stick. But they were around everywhere when I was coming up in Dallas. That's where I was playing with the Reach in the 90s. And so I was very familiar with their stuff.
So I identify very strongly with the narrative of Blueburst. I had a band in the late 90s, had some interests, some labels were like, hey, and then, people were people and it didn't happen. And I
Yeah.
put it down for 20 years because, career,
Life.
life,
Yeah.
life happened, marriages, divorces, all of it.
Yeah.
And came back to it, 20, 25 years later and had a really great experience. One of the things for us that was an itch that had to be scratched was the need to play live. So with the successful album and some really great feedback, have you had an opportunity to put a live band together and play a couple of gigs?
No, but I want to. I've kind of sadly accepted that getting the four guys who played on the record together to tour is going to be a non-starter. I mean, Michael Jerome, the drummer, has been on tour with Slash and Richard Thompson and a project called The Third Mind, and he's kind of a full-time member of Better Than Ezra. So,
I'm sure
it's just from an availability standpoint. Yeah.
He'll tell Slash.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to take a break. I got to take a break for this Blueburst thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. And Marty lives in Portugal now, so just getting him here is a trick. But I really want to do it, and a guy from a band called 5/8 in Athens reached out to me. A guy named Patrick Ferguson, the drummer, and he had heard the record and loved it, and he's been a real sort of evangelist for the record. And I said something about, I really want to get a live band together. And he's like, who are you going to get to play drums? And I'm like, do you want to play drums? And he's like, I thought you'd never ask. So he and I are kind of trying to figure out how maybe we could make that work. It's a weird thing because Marty is such an integral part to it, and I can't imagine doing it without Marty. So right. I don't know what we're going to do exactly. I mean, I've done acoustic stuff here, and I've kind of worked up a sort of quasi-acoustic electric thing I'm going to try for the first time at a gig this weekend in Charleston, South Carolina, where it's not just me strumming. It's I've got some loops and I've got effects and all that. So it's a little more than just the balladeer kind of thing. But yeah, I would love to play these songs live, but it's it's just, if support continues to grow the way it has in the last few months, anything can happen. So it's really exploded just in the last 3 months, and because I finally started doing all the social media and advertising that I should have done from day one, and it's gotten in front of people, and the response has been incredible. So I'm excited, to see if it just keeps growing. So.
Yeah, interestingly, the record was released in 2023, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, October.
Yeah.
And
Portugal.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like around August of last year, I was kind of moping around about it, and pissed off that no one's listening to it, and saying to my wife, like, "What's the point of doing anything ever?" And I just kind of was like, you know what, I gotta accept that the way the music industry is today is you have to become a content creator, and you have to make ads, and you have to do anything you can to get to be posting 3 times a week, something. And I really didn't want to do that early on, because I just didn't want to be like, hey guys, it's me, here I am, I'm having breakfast. But I think I've managed to make some social media content that's not that's more interesting. And, I had my wife interview me about the songs, and I cut clips from that together with clips from the lyric videos. And, but yeah, once, I basically just took 2 weeks and made 3 months worth of social content, and then set it all up to run automatically, and just said, if I'm going to do that, and if that doesn't work, then fuck it. But it's worked like a gangbusters. So I'm super excited about it.
Well, it helps that the songs are very good.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's, if they weren't, I'm sure it wouldn't be getting the response that I'm getting from it. So
it's such a strange study in marketing right now, where a guest we had on just a couple weeks back was talking about how there's sort of a PR moment where PR firms were saying, oh, you've got to release, don't do albums, don't do EPs, just do singles. And they've got to be spaced 6 weeks apart, and you've got to have content, bang, 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 bang. And their point was that might have been true 6 months ago, but all of the algorithmic data that was
Yeah.
telling people, 6 weeks, and that's all a fad now. It's all that moment's already come and gone.
Yeah, and something in the algorithm has changed recently. I don't know what exactly, but something has changed that's made a lot of people start complaining about it and say it's not doing its job. It's not giving the music they want to hear.
Well, I
think it's been pretty amazing to me. Its ability to funnel me to music that I didn't know that I'd end up liking, and it certainly is valuable to me as a musician for it to funnel my stuff to people. For it to go, okay, this guy just listened to the Church, Rush, REM, and The Cure all in a row. Maybe he would like Blueburst. So,
Right.
I have mixed feelings about it. It's like everything. It's like there's any piece of technology can either be wonderful or horrible depending on who's using it and why and how. So,
well, it's funny you mentioned that. I mentioned the Harpers at the top of the show, and the issue that I think it's the most recent issue. They talk about Spotify and the algorithm and how it has changed. And the ghost songs and the ghost artists and the creation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And some of those lists or those discovery lists are predominantly what they call PFCs, perfectly fit content.
Yeah.
Created by either AI and or these artists who are.
That freaks me out, man. Because I'm one of those people that is, I'm a total addict about it. Like, I have to have new music in my life constantly. And at the end of the year, I'm one of those people that puts my stupid end of year, best of playlist together and sends it to all my friends. I'm like, this is the shit you should be listening to, and this year was 150 songs because the algorithm has gotten so good at being like, you'll like this. And almost every time I'm like, yep, I like that. And I'm to the point now where I'll reach out to artists on Instagram almost an anti AI check, be like, just making sure you're human.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I took a course over the summer through Berkeley online. I've taken a bunch of music classes from them, but I took one in AI and music. And there's this site that was part of the class called, I think it's Suno. And you can just go on there and go, write me a reggaeton song, sung by Frank Sinatra with lyrics about a caterpillar who goes to jail. And it'll do it. And it'll sound convincing. And it's unreal. And so, a friend of mine who's not really a musician, just kind of as an art project, made an album of stuff where he put in the lyrics and then had it do the song and put it out. And it's like, it's funny that he did it, but it's like, it's sad that people can do that now. And is that what we're going to end up listening to? And I don't know. It's I always feel like music is supposed to be the communication of an emotion from one person to another one. And so if there's no person, it's
not going to work that way for me. And I think that's one of the reasons the record resonated so much with me, is that I could tell it was a person. It was people.
Yeah. Well, we tried to keep it pretty organic and, I mean, there's no auto tune to Ben. He might've fixed a syllable or two when he mixed it, but, we wanted to keep it relatively unprocessed. And I feel like, I feel like the genre of alternative nowadays is very much processed, slick music.
Yeah.
And alternative when I was growing up was different, but now it's that music we called indie. And I realized kind of midway through, like, okay, wait a minute, we're not alternative, we're indie. Indie is what we're doing. So, but I definitely wanted it to have that feel of a band in a room to some degree, rather than something sort of Frankenstein together out of various parts. So,
for sure.
Now, is this self-produced?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's incredible to me that you did not have 4 bandmates in a room together making this music. I mean, the fact that you can do so much remotely and in a home studio, it sounds like it sounds like a record that was recorded in Los Angeles at a studio that costs, multiple thousands of dollars per day to rent, and and is of a very, very high quality. So congrats to you on
Thank you.
A pretty nice job, I think, on the production side.
I think a few things led into that. One is that I was able to get terrific musicians to play on it. I mean, Michael Jerome, I knew him from a band back in Dallas called Pop Poppins that I was a big fan of, and followed him over the years. And I was like, I wonder what he's doing. I wonder if he'd play on this. And sure enough, he did. And I got a guy named Ryan Kelly that I knew from a band called Day Room in Athens. And Ryan's just a monster bass player. He can just do anything. And so there's that. And then, we made a point to always, as much as possible, use real amps. Even if sometimes I would record something and then go back later and reamp it through an amp. Pretty much everything you hear on the album is a microphone on an amp. It's easy to do the simulated amps and they sound pretty great, but there's something missing, I think, when you use too many of them. And the biggest thing is the guy who mixed it is named Ben Eder. And I just kind of found him on the internet and saw that he had mixed Deer Hunter and Hazel English and a couple other records that I liked. And I had had a couple other mixers try it out. Amplify Me was the first song. And the mix he sent me of Amplify Me just blew everything else out of the water. And if you hear my early mixes compared to, because I thought I was going to mix it at first, and then Marty's like, nah, you should get somebody. But he added so much to it, and he's a younger guy, so I think he added a little bit of modern sensibility to our retro. Vintage. Every amp has to be vintage, and 90s kind of thing going on. So
now, when you recorded it, when did you record it? It was during the pandemic or post-pandemic?
Some of both. It's kind of been like I said, a gradual project over the years. And the funny thing is the way, at least I do music now, but I think a lot of people do is it's not like the old days where you made a demo and then you went into the studio and recorded the real thing. It's more like you make a demo and then you layer one part over that. And then you go, well, that part's not quite good enough. I'll get rid of that and re-record it. And it's kind of this like gradual polishing of the turd, into a finished song. It's hard to say when I wrote it exactly. It just kind of all of it gradually happened. And, some of the songs, Vanish is based on a riff I wrote, and I remember writing it in Brooklyn, and it would have been about 2005. So when I was living there, then Kick My Tires is completely new that, I just wrote. Senseless was a little riff I had on my iPhone that I'd played one day and kept around. So I kind of had this trough of just little snippets that needed to be fleshed out and finished into songs. So I still have a bunch of them. So
good. That's
I think that's probably where we were both going to go next. Is will there be more?
Absolutely. I don't know when, but I mean, I'm working on it already, and I definitely, there will be more. It's just a matter of fitting it into life, and like I said, I was fortunate in a way in that I was, my career was not going great, and I wasn't getting any freelance work as an advertising guy. So I had plenty of time to make the meat of this record. But I'll get it done. I'm super excited to do it. And, I got my confidence back on finishing songs, and I'm excited to get going on it. So
good. So
in fact, Marty's going to be in the States in May, and I'm going to try to get a couple days in the studio with him. So I got to write some stuff that he can play on before that. So,
okay, good. So it won't take another 20 years.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Good.
And have
Go ahead. Sorry.
I have a drummer and a bass player from Athens rehearsed and ready to go, and just point him towards the stage and say, "Here we go. Let's do this."
Yeah, could be. We'll see.
Keith, I will I want to tie, you know me, I love connections. I love
Yeah.
tying shit together. Right. So you reference 5/8. There is a documentary about to be released called Weirdo, the story of 5/8.
Yeah, that's
legendary
yeah.
band from Athens, Georgia.
Well, Patrick reached out to me to invite me to go to the screening of that here with him. So that was fun.
Wow.
And
Wonderful.
it was funny because Patrick made a joke before the movie started about how the drummer just wouldn't shut up in this movie. And this guy in front of us didn't realize who he was and was like, "How dare you insult the band that way?" I was just like, "I'm the band." It's kind of funny moment. Yeah,
it's me. I'm busting on.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but it's a terrific movie. I don't know if you've seen it or not yet, but I knew of 5/8, but I didn't know that much of their stuff, and it's just a fascinating story, and I've delved into their music, and it's terrific.
So Keith, they will be playing the documentary here in my home city of Birmingham, Alabama, which will feature an opening set from our friends, The Pauses. So,
oh wow, okay,
cool.
Bring it all full circle.
Yeah, they've been kind of taking the movie on tour and playing sets, I think, after it, and it's a pretty cool thing. So,
The Pauses in 5/8 with a documentary sandwich in the middle.
Yeah,
sounds
nice.
Pretty groovy to me. So the moment you said 5/8, I was like, oh yeah, those guys are awesome.
Yeah,
interesting.
It does kind of seem like you're flirting with the idea of a live band. You're like, it could happen, right?
I really want to do it. I haven't figured out how exactly. I mean, I miss it. I miss cranking up the amp and playing that way.
This record. The songs on this record beg to be played live. I mean, there's some real epic moments where I can see the feedback from the crowd giving you that extra bit of energy that those songs, when they crescendo, there's a real gravitas to it, man. I hope you pull it off. I hope you let us know.
I will. I'll keep you posted
for sure.
So,
well, great. We're approaching 1 hour. I want to do one last thing and tell you what I love most about Senseless is where is it? I'm not beaten yet. That's a real sense of Gen X angst and optimism combined together.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's making me tear up a little bit now just thinking about that line. And it's kind of the story of this album, right? It's like you haven't kicked me out of this thing yet. You can't call me a failure yet. Nope. So
keep
what's the saying? I can't remember it. It's something to that effect of like, you haven't failed until you quit trying or something like that. You just haven't gotten to success yet.
Yeah.
So
what is it? Is it not Einstein? I didn't find one way to be successful. I found 100 ways to fail.
Yeah.
Something to that effect. Something like that.
No, like I said, my day job's in advertising, and one of my favorite ads of all time is the one where it just shows for Nike, where it just shows Michael Jordan just like missing shot after shot and tripping over his own feet, and just every bad play he's ever had all in a row. And he says, in my career, I've missed over 8 million shots and I've lost over 60,000 games. And 32 times I've been asked to take the game-winning shot and missed. He says, I've failed over and over in my career, which is why I succeed.
Yep.
So
that's
back when ads could actually be inspiring back many years ago. But
I don't know. Have you seen the Squatty Potty ad? Inspiring to me.
I have not.
I'll send you a link.
All right. I'll be looking forward to that.
Greatest television ad in the history of the game.
No, it's not.
That's funny.
Craig, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
I have to show some off to you guys before you go. I'm very excited about this t-shirt. This looks like dots. But if I back up,
REM?
It's the cover of Murmur.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that?
Etsy or somewhere like that. I forget.
Okay.
So I got a few of them. So I got Disintegration and a couple other ones. So.
Fantastic.
I'm so glad you're from Atlanta. Honestly, like, had you said, "Oh yeah, I'm from Portland," it would have just, I don't know. It makes sense that you're from Atlanta. I love it.
Well, I mean, you nailed it with that sort of group of bands that you felt like I was in the same realm as. That stuff was the template for me, for everything I do, and it's always gonna be in that realm. And hopefully you can take the template and do something your own out of it. But that's kind of where it starts. So
there's something about bands from Georgia, man. There's a vibe to it. And the moment you said 5/8, I went, oh yeah, oh, it makes perfect sense. I love it.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I feel fortunate to have grown up here and kind of had that ethos, be part of my formative years. So
sweet.
Totally. It makes perfect sense.
I wish,
together, we'll book you in Birmingham.
Well, I wouldn't show you, but I can't because I'd have to turn my whole computer around. But behind my computer is a framed film poster, movie poster from Athens, Georgia, Inside Out.
Oh, wow.
Perfect. Which, I don't know if you know that movie, but it's
that's an old movie.
It's an old one. Yeah. It's from like the mid 80s. And it's got a bunch of those old bands like Pylon and Love Tractor and Flat Duo Jets. But it also has REM and the B-52s in it. Very cool little movie that captures that time, I think, really nicely.
Gosh, I want to say that was 88, 87, 88. I remember that. I
know it was like Life's Rich Pageant era.
Okay.
That's how I mark time. Back in those days, by which REM album I was listening to at the time. But
what do you think about, this is apropos of nothing, but what do you think about Michael, the guy who's touring REM records, the actor?
I think it's cool that he's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's cool that maybe some people who weren't familiar with those records are going to, get to be familiar with them. But I think it's terrible that they put them on Jimmy Fallon and on national TV and gave them spots that could have gone to a more deserving artist, because they're not really that good. They're just an REM cover band who happens to have a famous guy singing.
Wow.
And they're not really a particularly good REM cover band, to be honest with you. I've heard some really good ones, and they're not one, So, but on the other hand, more power to you if you want to go do that. I just don't think they need to be putting it on national TV. I had an REM cover band for a brief time.
Oh, wow,
we never had played a gig, but
you weren't asked to be on Jimmy Fallon.
No. I mean, you know what I mean. So I was fully in favor of it until I saw that the other day that they were on Jimmy Fallon. I was like, what?
No, I hadn't considered that, but
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, musicians tend to always feel like I should have had that spot. Why is that guy got it? I should be on there. I should be on Jimmy Fallon. So I'm sure that plays into it. But
well, cool. Well,
so I hope Michael Shannon doesn't see this, because I really like him as an actor.
He's a great actor.
He's a terrific actor.
Yeah.
So
I never, it's funny to hear you say that they're an REM cover band. I swear, hand to God, it never dawned on me that they were an REM cover band. I'm just like, it's Michael Shannon doing REM records.
Yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, that's all they've done, because they did like a Fables of the Reconstruction tour, and now they're doing, or they did Murmur first, I think.
I think they did Murmur, and now they're doing Fables.
Yeah. So I don't. Maybe they do other stuff. I just thought it was solely put together to do that, And again, like I said, it's cool. Go out and spread the gospel. Those albums are terrific albums, and they're fun, and I'm sure they're fun shows to go to. So I'm cool with it, but I'm not cool with the booking agents who put them on national TV. So
yeah.
Of course, I'm not cool with the booking agent who booked Glorilla on Saturday Night Live this week either. So
I don't even know who the fuck that is.
You don't want to know. You don't need to know.
Glorilla?
Glorilla, yeah.
No, what kind of music? I don't. Jeff, are you familiar?
It's disappointing is the category of music.
Well said.
It's in. So I have a 13-year-old daughter who is starting to have opinions and taste of her own, which is both wonderful and terrifying at the same time. and she brings home stuff that, and I've always subscribed to the Jello Biafra school of thought about this, which is, I'll never forget in college, I saw Jello on one of his spoken word tours, and he talked specifically about the tipper sticker and how parents just are quick to ban music and say, don't listen to it. He said, what I would do is I would sit down with my kid and I would listen to it with them. And I would say, now tell me what you like about this. Tell me what is resonating with you. And so I did that with a song that apparently is played at all the school dances and is insanely popular. And maybe I'm giving myself away a bit too much here, but it's Fiend. I don't know if you've heard Fiend. But if you read the lyrics to the song, it should not be played at middle school dances.
Yeah.
Probably should not be getting the level of exposure that it is. The message is awful, and I feel like that. I feel like I'm yelling at kids to get off my lawn right now because I'd like to think that I'm pretty tolerant and progressive in my music tastes, and there's lots that she listens to that I do appreciate. But the Fiend one, I was like, nah, I don't. It reaches into an area of musical culture that just says nothing to me. It doesn't speak to me at all. Musically, culturally, I don't get the references. I don't get the lyrics. What little I do understand about the lyrics. Yeah. It's a very strange moment to me. And I'm sure that our parents felt that way about some of the shit that we liked, but
yeah.
I was trying to break it down with my wife the other day. It's like, Alice Cooper at one point was the pinnacle of shock rock. Mm-hmm. And now we look back on Alice Cooper and we're like, what was the big deal? Right? Yeah. It seems so tame. And then in the mid to late 90s, Marilyn Manson became the new pinnacle of shock rock. And I think now we look back on some of the stuff he did in 1998 and we're like, it really wasn't worth freaking out over.
Yeah.
And it's like, but the bar, you keep needing to move the bar to shock somebody. And I'm not saying that Fiend is shock rock or anything. It's hip hop, but lyrically, it's pretty doggone aggressive. And
yeah. No, my niece, who was 13 at the time, sent us home a video of her hip hop dance class, and they were playing TikTok by Kesha. And the first line of that is "Wake up and brush my teeth with a bottle of Jack." It's like, wait a second, hang on, that's not right.
This is not the message.
Yeah, it's funny. I think guys our age, you always have that first moment in your life when you hear yourself say out loud, "That's not music; it's just noise." You're like, oh no. Now I said it. But
I'm willing to come around on a lot of it.
Yeah. But, I played some of significance to my parents at one point, and I was playing Vanish for my dad, and he's like, "So is this just like music today? It's just like all political and with politics?" And I'm like, "Well, no, not all of it." I'm like, my genre does more of it than most, I guess, but there's fun music. And he's like, "What about songs like Wake Up Little Susie? That fun song, And I'm like, I don't know, Lizzo, maybe, so I didn't really know what to tell him.
I don't think a WAP would fall into that category.
Probably not. Yeah.
No, I do not think your dad would identify with Glow Rida.
No, but I was like, hey, I like the Everly Brothers. Sure, they're cool. They have some great songs. But anyway.
Sure. It's a strange thing. Yeah. And to see, and to go on Spotify and to see something like that hit in the hundreds of millions of spins, you're just like,
huh?
And yet music that we love and appreciate, we're like, oh yeah, they're struggling to get a couple thousand followers on Instagram. But that.
Yeah.
Get off of my lawn, you kids.
I know. I'm right there with you.
Oy.
You kids with your auto tune, you don't even have to know how to sing anymore. What's that all about? Yeah.
That's oh goodness. You can't make a record at home without having Melodyne installed, right?
True.
All right, great. Well, listen,
Awesome.
thanks again, Craig. I really
Craig,
appreciate it.
thank you.
Hey, thank you guys. This was a lot of
record.
I really appreciate it, and it's been really gratifying meeting guys like you and hearing from people like you who really are into it. And I can't say thank you enough. So I appreciate it.
Well, appreciate
Yeah,
the work.
we
Good
need
luck with your
sequel.
dad, man.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, take care.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.
7.
Many thanks to Craig for the time and for sharing his story.
This episode of Centre Stage was written and produced by Keith R. Higgins and Jeff Calhoun. The show was recorded at Thunderlove Studio, where it was engineered by
Daphne Morris,
with help from
Penetration,
edited by
Vic Titball,
with help from
Clem Fandango.
Our theme song is Cynical by Jaguar on Mars. You can stream Jaguar on Mars wherever you stream your favorite music. The songs you heard during this podcast were Vanish, Executioner's Song, Supernova, and Amplify Me. All of these songs can be found on the Blueburst album Significance, which is available now. You can stream Blueburst wherever you stream your favorite music.
original music by Mike Pellegrino.
If you like what you've heard, please remember to subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps other people find the podcast. Thanks for listening.
Grazie.
Bailey Leaf,
Rob Janicki, Mike Pellegrino, Farina Vella,
S.W. Loudon,
Michael Janicki, Peyton Janicki.
This show's executive producer is Lulu McGillicuddy and is in the loving memory of
Lucas Thunderlove.
And now, until we meet again next time, I remain as always, obediently yours.
Abandoned Albums is a production of Paw Print Media.